Hello everyone, welcome back. So, some of you may be a little frustrated with as much as I've been going back and forth and changing things and trying different things with this project. But this is how it is. This is, you evaluate a product, you decide that it's good or bad, and then, maybe a little bit down the line you discover some other major problems and you really have to rethink the way you're doing that. So that is exactly what has on with this. I know that we had successfully at one point gotten the localhost 4000 gotten the login button to show up, with the iframe, and that was working okay. And then I started trying to work on the comments, and I just hit problem after problem after problem after problem, and it is. And I mean, like, my browser kept crashing, and I mean, it was really bad. I don't know what was going on, and it's a really hacky way to try to do it anyways. And so, that I really decided against it and said, okay, let me actually like do some research into this again, but let me look at some other stuff. So, one of the things I found was, come on, there it is. This OAuth.io, and they claim to be a really simple way to integrate OAuth into your websites. And I was like, okay, it's worth a shot, right? It's worth a shot. So I did that, and what you do is they've got some documentation that is okay documentation. I wouldn't say it's the greatest. If you pay attention to what it's doing, it does what you want it to do. So, and you can get this working. So really simple, just OAuth, client side, 100% client side. Well, not 100% because you actually do hit their servers, and their servers proxy it, stuff like that. But basically, you just do this OAuth pop up, and then whatever your provider is, which mine is GitHub, and then on the done, it returns some stuff, and you do some stuff, and it's pretty simple actually. And I got that working, and then I was like, okay, let me actually start. I needed to authenticate. Basically, I wanted you guys to authenticate to both. I need your credential, or not your credentials, but I need your like username and email and picture. I don't even need the email. I just need your username and your picture on the front end, right? So that I can show like who you are and and then I can like save, who you are when you're making the comment, stuff like that. But then I also do need authentication on the server side to go, okay, you are who you say you are. Let me go ahead and create this comment so that, there's not people creating comments that, from non-real users or from other users on your behalf. And it's, there's a lot of potential issues for that. So what I've done is I started looking at this server side. Now they support out of the box PHP and Node, but I'm running a Ruby on Rails server, so they do have a REST service. So if you just set it up with REST, basically this is your client-side JavaScript, and there's a whole process to it. You generate a state token in your backend, and then you send that to the front end, and then the front end makes the call to the service. Then the service returns information to the client. Then the client calls your back end, and your back end passes the code and exchanges it for an actual access token, and then it can get some information. So basically your backend needs to do a post request to this with the code that the client side received, and then your public key and your secret key from this OAuth, and then that whole thing returns an access token, and then you can take that access token and contact GitHub directly and get information about the user. So this is a very like multi-step long process, and I got most of it working last night. So I went ahead and took Devise out because I'm not using Devise. I'm really just home rolling my own user authentication at this point. So yeah, I mean, it does kind of feel like I wasted some time installing Devise, but it was all in the process to get me here. And so I mean, that's how it goes. Sometimes you do all this stuff and it works, and then I ended up just like pulling it all out. And I mean, maybe I could have gotten Devise to work, and I just didn't like look at that path. I'm not sure. I mean, very soon you guys will be able to leave comments, and then you'll be able to tell me like, "Oh, idiot, here's the link," and then I would, I'd learn something, and we'd all learn something, and that's what I really want to happen. So basically, what I did was I created a user's controller and a new user object, and then I pass in. Basically I have a route to get a token, which right now is just the letters O and K. And then I have an authorize function. So let's do this in order, right? Okay, let's try to follow this code. So basically I have a login button on my HTML. Let's look at that. That's here. I finally got something up here that doesn't look terrible. So there's a login button up here. This button calls the login method here. So then I do an HTTP GET request to /token on my server. Okay, then in Nitrous, which is my server, I hit /token and I return some sort of token, which eventually I'll be able to do this in a much better way. And right now the tokens are all exactly the same, just the letters O and K. Alright, so then when that returns, I call OAuth, pop-up, GitHub, and I take the state token, which is that OK that I sent across, and I send that over to them as well. It can be any arbitrary piece of anything. I think they require it, but it can be anything. So then I call that. So then it goes off to the OAuth people. They do their stuff, call GitHub, do whatever they need to do, right? And then they send it back to my my JavaScript, which comes back in the result. All right. So the next step is the result contains a code, and that's that second part of the documentation. So now I call my server authorize, and I pass it the code. Okay, now this is where it gets really complicated. My server then makes a call, a post request, see post form. It makes a post request to this URL and passes it the code that it received from the client side plus the key and the secret, which yeah, memorize it now, screen cap it, whatever. I'll change it before this video goes live. So then the response object comes back, and since it's a post request, it has a body. So then I take the response body and I JSON parse it so it's easy to use because it comes back as JSON. And then I start building a request to GitHub, api.github.com/user, and I pass it the access token that I got back from the access token call up here. Now, when I do that, see, after I do get response, so here's the get response. So then I JSON parse that because that's also in JSON. That also comes back as JSON. And that gives me things like your login name. So for me, it's Snare Chops. Your real name, if you have that filled out. This is all public information. That's, it's all part of their public API. So it gives me like Scott Robinson. And then email would be, my email. And then the image, which is like your little image that you have set for your profile. And then the access token I save so that I can make subsequent responses in, later. And then I'm creating, this is the part that for my own security, I'm starting to create some of these form authenticity tokens. So this is going to be used in combination with a session, hopefully, so that it's going to be nobody. What is it? It's protected against like cross-site resource forgery. Yeah, those types of attacks. So this token is going to be brand new every single time. And so every request that you make that does anything to do with your user, I'm gonna send back probably a new token, and then that token is going to be validated based on your user. So in coordination, and then that should make it a lot more secure and a lot harder to hack and stuff like that. So good. So we're getting some good security out of this, I believe. And then once all of that is finally done, a lot of processing here, which happens like instantaneously. You'd be surprised how quickly this all comes back. So after this is all done, all said and done, then I send back the user's name, email, username, image, and then of course that token. And that all gets sent back to the web page, so the client-side JavaScript. WebStorm. Then I take that and I'm going to store it in local storage, and I store the user information and the token separately. And then that way I can just use that on the page without having to make this request every single time. So it's like once you're logged in, then the client side just kind of runs itself. If you clear off your cookies, then it's going to go off and it's going to try to authenticate you again. And of course you can deny authentication, so completely up to you guys. So really, it's simple in theory, but there are, as you saw, a lot of lines and a lot of steps and a lot of, okay, go get this and then copy this and put this here and save this and then go and get this instead. And that's kind of how a lot of this works. Okay, so where am I now? So I'm all the way through, and I'm actually getting, user information back. I'm storing that on an object, and I'll be eventually displaying that on the page using some of the Angular stuff. However, there was one piece of the puzzle that I'm missing, which is authentication. Or sorry, what's the right word for that? Oh, come on. This session cookies, trying to get session cookies to work cross-domain. So when making an AJAX request, we need to use with credentials, and then also on the server side, we need to say allow credentials. So I just need to make sure that those are set. So our core stuff is in, well, what was it? Config, application, yep. Source star headers, any methods. Trying to remember if, do I need to specify this one specifically? Or is it gonna kind of do it for me? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to turn with credentials to true on in these requests, and I'm going to see if I can save a session. So we're just going to do a little bit of testing, and let's see. So we'll go to the Angular documentation, and we want $HTTP. Oh, that's right. We got to go to the documentation first. API reference. And then $HTTP. Okay. And where is the with credentials? Arguments, here we go. Method, URL, params, data, headers, transform request, with credentials. Here we go. So it looks like we just do with credentials equals true. So really simple, we can just throw that on our HTTP post. And that goes on the config, which the config is the third option on a post request. So we've got post, data, and then config. So it's with credentials true. Okay. And is it on a GET request? On the GET request, it's the second object. I figured let's go ahead and turn it on for the tokens as well. With credentials true. Okay. So now those two requests are using that method. Okay, so we refresh here. I need to make sure everything's running. So we need to go into workspace, log backend, Rails S B zeros. Okay, Jekyll's running. Yep. And I probably wouldn't mind a breakpoint. So we're going to refresh the page, make sure we get the latest code. And then we go to sources and go to the index.js. I'm going to confirm that the change is here. Yep, with credentials true. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop it on the first after token here. And in nitrous, I'm going to add on the token, yeah, so I'm already doing this session token equals test. And I just want to see, does this even work? Like, does the session even get saved? All right, so come back here and we click login. Whole process starts. We stop here. I'm going to look at the headers that came back. And the response headers were allow credentials true. Good. That's the one we want to be sending. And look, we have a set cookie. Awesome. Now, did the cookie actually set? So we go to resources, cookies. You know, I don't see it, but it doesn't mean it's not here. But we are getting the set cookie. HTTP only. Request headers. Okay. All right, so now that we're at that point, I do want to switch back over, and what we're going to do is I'm going to place a breakpoint here, remove that one, and then I'm going to place a bybug command here, which should break it at that point, and we're going to check the session when it comes back. So we, in theory, we should be sending across that stuff. So we go like that. We're now here. And if I go session token, I get test. Finally, this is every time I've done this, it's a nil. It's always nil. It never freaking works. Or there's an error saying the session hasn't been instantiated. Finally, yay! So the nice thing is that I can, instead of sending across the user like this, I could, well, I do need to do that still because the page does need that information. But I can store the user in session instead of storing it in localhost. So that's very good. So we're starting to get there, and I'm hoping today that by the end of this video, if I can move fast enough, by the end of this video, we should actually have maybe working comments and, well, I don't know about working comments, but stuff like that. Okay, so token. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to send this kind of token. Oh, probably needs to be the same one, right? So token equals form authenticity token, and then I just send across token and token. So session, how do we make it secure? I forgot that one. Session secure Rails. Session. There's a command. It's like session dot something. Session dot permanent dot. Session. Rails. No tamper. Is it encrypted? Session Rails encrypted. Destroy session, load session. That's not helpful. Come on. Has secure password, device, decrypt, Rails 4 session. Okay, well, we can get to that later. I remember there's something, you dot something, and it just makes it much better. Okay, so we've got the login button, and we've got our data coming back, and we're setting it, and I should be able to see it actually in the local storage. So there's my email and the image that's supposed to be for me and stuff like that. So this whole process is working, which is fantastic. Okay, so what was I doing here, right? So then, sorry about that. I should be able to session user and another token. So yeah, what I'll do is we'll go session user equals @user and session token equals token. Okay. All right, and I mean that's about how quickly that whole process happens, like that fast, and that's great. So let's look at cookies, and I still don't really see anything, but I mean it's working, so whatever. Okay. So now that we have this working, it's time to start like flipping the button into something else that shows, hey, you're logged in, and things like that. So basically what I want to do for that is when you're logged in, how do we detect that you're already logged in? So self.user equals this, right? So if user does not equal an empty object, basically, let's see, how do we get to that piece of the code? So that's in the header, and here's where that button is. So what we want is an ng if let's see, controller.user equals an empty object. And I don't know if that's actually gonna like work. Maybe I just want it to be null. Yeah, let me do that. Let me set it to null if. Let me try it that way. I think that's gonna be easier to type check against. Null. So instead of an empty object, we're gonna return null. Okay, so refresh. The button disappeared because we are no longer there. No, I need to be here. Okay, focus. So not equal null. No, if it equals null. If it equals null, show the button. If it does not equal null, so then we want it to be a, I don't know. For now, just a paragraph or span. Let's do span, just so we're not messing with ng if controller user is not equal null, then we want to show, and we're in this, so we're doing that, controller user username, and we can say welcome or something, right? It's just enough to make it. Yep. So there we go. So we're getting that, and then in theory, if I destroy the user, delete that, and I refresh, I get the login button, and then when I press login, oh, nitrous probably, yep. And get rid of that bybug line. Okay, come back here, and I should now have a user. What? I got rid of bybug. Or at least the line. Aha, there's the user. Okay. So, yep, and then it didn't flip over automatically. No, it should have actually. Yeah, let's do that one more time now that we've got the debuggers turned off. Log in. Boom. Welcome. So finally we're getting the behavior we want. And we're going to take this and we're going to expand upon this coming up really soon. So I'm going to call it for this episode, and we will continue next time. Thanks for watching.